Hey everyone. Based on the preponderance of evidence, based on my own anecdotal subjective experience over the culmination of my entire work life, which goes from when I was 15 years old till today, and I'm 46 years old, in many different fields and many different occupations, working with both men and women, and in addition to that, the personal experience and accounts of all of those that I've ever grown up with or associated with, been friends with, family members, neighbors, those that I associate with in the social media atmosphere, and everyone else. I have never seen any real world evidence presented or put forth by anyone in the private sector where there's any systemic racism, sexism, or a culture of such in any workplace or any environment. That is the truth. Now, what we're hearing time and time again being reported by those in academia, the halls of academia, and the political/ruling class, it seems to be the kind of message that they put forth and present is it's rampant, right? If you go by the opinions of these types, it seems to be widespread and literally part of the culture. And if you think about it and consider the fact that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and you do have a lot of men in the halls of academia or in the ruling/political class or in the establishment media, at least at the higher aspects of those occupations, they may very well be using their own personal subjective experience as a means to propagate and make it seem like the rest of the world functions under that kind of atmosphere, under that kind of environment. I think that's the great divide. That's the great discrepancy. Is yes, there may very well be some systemic racism or sexism, but it sure as shit does not exist for all of those of us that have to function in the private sector where we have to deal with each other on a voluntary basis, right? I mean, because you think about it, in the private sector, there is no pretense of authority. No one has any pretense of authority. Even your boss has a very minimal amount of authority over you because you can just leave, right? Whereas in the halls of academia, which is a completely monopolized system of institutional indoctrination, or in the media, which once again, still, right, the propagandist arm of government nowadays, or in those in government, the politicians or the ruling class or their subordinates. And that's where power lies. Those are the institutions that claim to have authority and a buttload of power. So if you take the reality of the fact that yes, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, with another fact that that power rests and resides in the halls of academia, the political/ruling class, and in the media/pundit class, then I think we're finally starting to get somewhere as far as why there seems to be such a divide in how people perceive this. And you see this even in the comment sections on all the articles or social media outlets that you frequent. There's a whole swath of people that will comment as if it's as real can be. You know, they will tell you and they'll look you in the eyes, or they'll create long-winded articles or blogs that would suggest that oh there's rampant racism and sexism. But as you're seeing, look at who those people are and look at the environment they function within. Whereas, are you hearing that from anyone in the private sector? The kind of people that you deal with on a daily basis that don't have any pretense of authority? Right? You're not, are you? I know I am not, and I never have. Like I said, in all the years I've been alive, even if I've been out partying with a bunch of guys, all guys, in a camp, in the middle of the woods, in rural New Brunswick, way the hell out, like off-grid. I'm talking off-grid, where people can speak freely and openly about whatever kind of shit they want to talk about without any fear of reprisal. And even then, even under those circumstances, I've never heard any rampant abuse towards women being discussed as if it was a great thing, or any promotion of sexism or racism. that's something so rare. Like I say, most of the time I've ever heard any of that brought up seems to keep coming from those who have some pretense of authority or power. 2 plus 2, well, that seems to be equal to 4 in regards to where that divide lies, right? Does that not make sense to you? I know it sure as shit does to me. I mean, how is it that the private sector has all these experiences that seems to be completely contrary and a polar opposite to those that seem to be in the public sector or part of the ruling class or the opinion makers or the propagandists? So maybe they are correct. Maybe that's been the problem all along, is that those of us in the private sector were like, what are you talking about that there's some kind of systemic racism or sexism? The reason why we're so shocked and outraged and despise the fact that it's put forth and presented as if it's something that's rampant through all of Canadian culture is the fact that we don't observe it or experience it, but they do. So what it is we don't live in their world, and they sure as shit don't live in ours. So we have no idea what the hell is going on. So we're like, when people bring up the fact that, oh, there's systemic racism or sexism, we're like, well, no, there isn't. I've never seen or experienced it. And I don't know anyone of my own personal friends, or even those on social media, the hundreds or the thousands that I've ever discussed or talked about these kind of topics with before. I've never heard anyone in the private sector mention this as being even remotely something that's systemic. There might be some small one-off experience they've seen or witnessed over the course of their life. But systemic in any way or cultural? No. Nothing of the sorts. When you look at it from that macro perspective instead of with that tunnel vision. See, that's the thing. They're looking at things through with tunnel vision. And even those of us in the private sector, we're looking at it to a certain degree, or most of us. I try to look things from the macro picture, and I make sure I do that, even though my own personal subjective experiences is I take those into account too. But I always think, well, yeah, that's not the end all be all. We have to look at it from the macro perspective. But those in the halls of academia, you think about the kind of people they'd hang around with. Think about the kind of people they'd have a barbecue with. Think about the kind of people. So, well, there's your divide, folks. There's your divide. Yes, it may very well be rampant, but even I can't suggest as such because, like I say, I don't operate in that environment, and I never fucking would. If it has anything to do with or pertains to government or central planning, yeah, I don't want nothing to do with that. I see the evidence is in. I see what it does to you people, and why I would never want to venture even close to that realm. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.